two-part video. Please check out the link in the description for part 2. Welcome back to another of my favorite videos, my favorite albums. Today we're going to 1995, and I will see if I'm able to actually remember anything from 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Anyway, some of these albums will be talked about in more detail than others, mostly for time. But number one, these are in chronological order. Number one on the list from 1995 is Van Halen's Balance. If I remember correctly, this is the first Van Halen album that I did not purchase. I heard it many times because friends had it, etc. And it's not a bad album. There's some good stuff on there, but for me, more so than any other Van Halen, to me this is when Van Halen died. They did things after this, but this was the last serious Van Halen album to me. If you don't agree, that's okay. This album, more than any other Van Halen album, is really good to put on for background music when you're not intently focused on the music itself. There's not a lot of pyrotechnics from Eddie on this album. There are some, but there's not a lot. It's low key. There's some good songs on here. Go listen to it. Okay. Next up, we have one of these albums, which means overlooked or underrated, or however you want to put it. I tend to think there's some albums out there that a lot of people haven't heard that they need to hear. And when you see this little flame thing here above an album, that means it's one of them. So you want to go check it out. Next one is from a band called Porcupine Tree, which at its heart is Steven Wilson. Musical genius. The dude's put out, I don't know, I tried to figure out in my head among the different bands that he's been a part of, different projects, solo, Porcupine Tree, No Man. He's just been a part of so much stuff. He's easily put out 75 albums, easily, and he's been involved in many, many more than that, doing remixes and stuff like that. But anyway, Porcupine, Sky Moves Sideways. This, at its heart, is very similar to Pink Floyd, like Echoes, or I don't know, something that's this big epic song that has a bunch of different changes and things that go through it. So there's two versions of this particular song, Sky Moves Sideways, on that album, like a part 1 and a part 2, that are about 20 minutes long, about 18 minutes long or something like that each. And then there's a third version that is both of those parts put together, that's a little reimagined. It's like a different take on it. It's the same song, just a little different. So those make up, well over an hour's worth of the album. And then there's several other songs included as well. But this is one of those albums that is an experience. You have to go into this album thinking you're going to spend an hour and a half with it in order to fully appreciate it. It's some good stuff. You're going to hear me talk a lot more about Porcupine Tree and Steven Wilson and some of his other projects coming up, so just be ready for that. Next up, not going to say a lot about this album, Extreme, Waiting for the Punchline. It was their 4th album. Just as Van Halen was disintegrating, Extreme was also disintegrating, and Gary Cherone from Extreme went and joined Van Halen for a not very well received album. But there was not a lot heard from Nuno Bettencourt of Extreme for a long time after this album came out. This album, to me, Extreme, the first 3 albums were kind of very youthful, very high energy. This one feels more mature to me. It's got great playing on it. Nuno is cited by a lot of really, really fantastic guitar players as one of the top guitar players out there consistently. And I agree, man. He's a killer guitar player. And anyway, there's some good stuff on that album. Go check it out. Next up, we have Slash's Snake Pit. This would have been a Guns N' Roses album, except for Axl's silliness. So Slash just said, hey, I'll make it my own album. Solo Slash's Snake Pit. He's got most of the people that were in Guns N' Roses at that time are playing on here. Along with a singer that I go back and forth on. Sometimes I think he sounds too much like Axl, and sometimes I think he sounds not enough like Axl. He's got his own voice, but he kind of teeters between that. He's trying to sound like Axl and failing, and not trying to sound like Axl and failing. But overall, this is a high energy, swagger, dirty rock and roll album. It's Slash. It's good stuff. Go check it out. I'm not going to talk a lot about this one. I'm just going to say that this was one of my favorite albums in 1995. Jewel, Pieces of You. There's a couple of albums on this list. You'll hear others that a 21-year-old girl that had never really done anything can put something like this out amazed me at the time. I thought it was very she sounded and seemed in her lyrics and in her songs and stuff like that, like somebody that had been around more than 21 years. I'll put it that way. I rather enjoyed that album. Hey, here's another female artist that put a killer album out this year. Annie Lennox put out an album called Medusa that is all cover tracks. And the choices of songs that she chose to cover on this album, try to make a better list for her to sing. It's just fantastic. It's a great album. Annie Lennox, Medusa. It has a couple of songs that are my favorite versions of those songs, even more so than the original artist. That's saying a lot considering the songs that are on this album. All right, next up, we have a band called Wilco. Put their debut album out this year. This was Jeff Tweedy and most of the guys from Uncle Tupelo, after there was a split up in that band, got together, stayed together, whatever, put out this album called AM by Wilco. It sounds very reminiscent of Uncle Tupelo, which was kind of one of the people at the forefront of the new Americana type movement that happened in the 90s, late 80s, 90s. Some really good music. Wilco follows in that tradition. They kind of changed their style a little bit on albums after this first one, but there's nothing wrong with that because it's good music. Anyway, Wilco. If you haven't heard that first album, go give it a listen. Next up, we have one of my favorite bands that hadn't put anything out in a number of years. King Crimson put out an album called Thrack. And I mean, you got to go listen to an album called Thrack, right? Thrack. This version of King Crimson was 2 3-piece bands, 2 guitarists, 2 bass players, and 2 drummers. And they combined to form one big King Crimson thing. Among the people playing on this album are Robert Fripp, Adrian Belew, Tony Levin on bass, Bill Bruford on drums. Just killer stuff. It's kind of reminiscent of their early to mid 80s Red period kind of stuff. Good stuff on there. Next up, we got John Prine, Lost Dogs and Mixed Blessings. It's John Prine. You ever heard anything bad from John Prine? It's got some really good stuff on it. It's got one of my favorite songs from him called Lake Marie is on this album. It's got some good stuff on it. Go check out John Prine, Lost Dogs and Mixed Blessings. Up next, we have another debut album. There was a movement that was reminiscent of the new wave of British heavy metal in the late 70s and early 80s. All those great bands that came at that time. There was just a ton of really good stuff that came out of England. in the heavy metal realm, in that new wave of British heavy metal. This is similar to that to me. It seems like a new wave of world prog rock, prog metal. There was a lot of bands that came out at this time period that just reinvigorated the whole prog scene. And some of them are among my favorite bands still to this day, Porcupine Tree being one of them. This band is called Opeth. The album is called Orchid. And there's going to be some of you, if you go give this a listen, you're going to listen to about 30 seconds of it and turn it off. And you're never going to listen to Opeth again. And that's sad, because you're going to miss some great music. The reason you're going to turn it off is because he's doing those death growls. There's a cat. You figured that out, though. And Opeth really is the only band where the singer does that growling kind of stuff that I actually like. No other band, I cannot stand that. But with Opeth, for some reason, I think it's the genius of Michael Ackerfeld. He's the singer, the guitar player, the main writer, the main dude in Opeth. And all of his other talents and skills override his use of that type of singing. And he doesn't do it all the time. He sings in his natural voice, mixes stuff together. This is a great album. It was a great start for a great band. They've put probably, 16 or 17 albums out, maybe 12, I don't know. Next up, we have Gary Moore, Blues for Greenie. This is quintessential Gary Moore. You must listen to this if you've never heard it. Blues for Greenie is his way of paying homage to Peter Green. He's got the Les Paul that Peter Green played. At this period, Gary Moore owned it, and this is all Peter Green music, and it's Gary Moore blues to the core. Just killer stuff on this album. Next up, another female artist that just took the world by storm, Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. Loved this album. I absolutely played this album to death. There's something so raw and open and honest about this stuff. It just kills me. Next up, we got Natalie Merchant from 10,000 Maniacs, Tiger Lily. Another really beautiful debut album. Just some really good stuff on it. Another debut album from 1995, Foo Fighters, or Dave Grohl, if you'd rather, because he plays every single thing on this album except for one guitar part. On one song, he had another guitar player playing with him. He recorded this in like a week in his kitchen or something. It was kind of a cathartic move on his part to try to work through what was going to happen after Nirvana. And he started an absolute institution with Foo Fighters. I love that album. Next up, we've got another debut album, Government Mule. Warren Haynes, Alan Woody, Matt Apst on drums. Coming out of the Allman Brothers, formed this little power trio. One of the biggest, most magnificent power trios to ever play music together, if you ask me. Just a monster of an album. I'll talk more about this one. But that's it for part one. Okay? Part one. Part two is linked down in the description. Go check that video out to find out who my number one album is, or my favorite album, or however you want to say it, for 1995. Until then, y'all be cool.